Merry Christmas. Our reading from today is called the Prologue to John, and it's the very beginning, the introduction to the Gospel of John. Many of you are probably familiar with the translation of the Bible called The Message by Eugene Peterson. In his introduction to the Gospel of St. John, he makes reference to the beginning words of Genesis when God spoke creation into being. And Peterson says this prologue to John is a deliberate parallel to those words in Genesis. Here, though, Peterson says God speaks salvation into being in the physical form of Jesus. Most of us have heard these words many times, but I'd like you to hear part of this prologue to John in the beautiful translation that Eugene Peterson entitles The Lifelight. The Word was first, the Word present to God, God present to the Word. The Word was God, in readiness for God from day one. Everything was created through him. Nothing, not one thing, came into being without him. What came into existence was life, and the life was light to live by. The life light blazed out of the darkness. The darkness couldn't put it out. There once was a man, his name John, sent by God to point out the way to the life light. He came to show everyone where to look, who to believe in. John was not himself the light. He was there to show the way to the light. The life light was the real thing. The Word became flesh and blood and moved into the neighborhood. One summer when I was in high school, I got a job as a tour guide in a cave. This was a huge cave in Fort Payne, Alabama, and the cave just had an amazing trove of treasures. Huge stalactites hung from those ancient ceilings, and giant boulders of stalagmites had grown from the floor, one drip at a time over hundreds of thousands of years. One of my very favorite places in the cave was a huge room in the very back that the owner had named the Ballroom. Halfway through our tour, we would gather our group in the ballroom at the very back. We'd kind of get them settled down and then tell them what to expect. And then we would turn all the lights out. Total darkness. We'd strain our eyes to see anything. But all we could see was this absolute, complete, all-encompassing darkness. People would often chuckle and giggle and ooh and ah a little at the first. But then the group would almost always go quiet. The darkness covered us, and it was always somber and a little overpowering. After a few minutes, we would slowly begin to turn on a light here or there, and if you didn't really know where to look, you weren't really sure if it was a glimmer of light or just your eyes playing tricks on you. I always remember breathing a little sigh of relief as those tiny glimmers of light began to shine in this space of overwhelming darkness. About 25 years ago, I found myself in a place so dark I thought I'd never be able to see my way through. The priest at my parish was an amazing woman named Maggie Taylor. Maggie went on to perform my wedding, and she sent me to seminary, and she became one of the dearest and closest friends and mentors I've ever had. But all those years ago, this dear person plunged into that darkness with me, held my hand, and walked with me through blinding darkness that I found myself in. Very gradually, I began to see little glimmers of light, little morsels of hope. More often than not, seen through this remarkable friend. In part, due to my friend, I recently celebrated the 15th anniversary of my ordination to the priesthood. It's been a remarkable, beautiful, challenging, deeply rewarding way of life for me. One of the most surprising things for me was to find that a true reward of this work has been the amazing gift I received when I had the privilege of walking with people on those same dark journeys that I'd experienced. The darkness where you strain to see just a glimmer of light. It's a holy thing, a marvelous gift to bear witness to the lifelight with people who find themselves in darkness and slowly begin to see those glimmers of light. Peterson's translation says the lifelight blazed out of the darkness couldn't put it out. The lifelight was the real thing. The Word became flesh and blood and moved into the neighborhood. Martin Luther is said to have lit the very first Christmas tree with candles so as to make it look like the stars in the sky. And one preacher wrote about that quote, "This is what we are called to be and to do, to bear witness to the light and do all in our power to help others do so as well. This is best done by seeking and serving Christ, the Word, the Logos, in all persons, everywhere, at all times. Because the peace of Christ that I need is the peace you have. And the peace you have is the peace I need." Civil rights leader Howard Thurman wrote of Christmas as a season of hope. And he said, "When the song of the angels is stilled, when the star of the sky is gone, when the kings and princes are home, when the shepherds are back with their flocks, the work begins. To find the lost, to heal the broken, to feed the hungry, to rebuild the nations, to bring peace among people, to make music in the heart." This is our work this Christmas season, and it is so needed in our unsettling and frightening world. Together, we find the joy of giving of ourselves to each other, walking all manner of paths with each other, light and dark, joyous and painful, bountiful and lean. These are the paths walked together that point to the light that is the Christ. And so, friends, our work begins. Go in peace this Christmas season. Walk together with those you encounter. Bring the light together that can't be put out into the darkness which is so often our world. And then maybe just in glimmers at first, watch as the Word becomes flesh and blood again and moves into the neighborhood.